So are we ready to move on for communities?
Yep. Yeah. So now it's going to be kind of a Mulgrim show. You're going to be talking a lot more about what it takes to basically run kind of a kind of a player focused group.
Yeah. So I've basically been an officer in every guild that I've been a part of since I was like 14. I just always personally I always just kind of fell into that role. And so I've had a lot of personal experience, a lot of missteps. I've made an uncountable number of mistakes in trying to help run guilds and communities. But I have that personal philosophy. Every time you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn from.
Right.
And so I have my own do list. Okay, that was dumb. So like one of the first things that I always say for a leader is to pick good officers. And I was actually just having a conversation with a guild leader of another Makote group recently, and they're having a lot of issues. They're having a lot of dependent on people leaving their group, and they don't have a super strong leadership structure yet. It and so I was just giving them advice about it, and like the first thing I told them was pick good officers, and it can be hard to figure out what's a good officer, who makes a good officer in a group. It's a really complicated thing when you think about it, because it's someone that you want to know you can trust, but also someone that you it's weird. You want to be able to rely on them, but you also want to know that you don't have to rely on them when you don't need to.
Right. I think there's an old adage about like the people who don't want to lead are the people who best can lead.
Right, because they're not after the power of
Right.
the
Right.
position.
And I think that's kind of, I think like that touches a little bit on that where um if you have if you kind of have this thing again if you've kind of if you promote the people that are basically kind of um looking for that power, then you're kind of trying to they're probably going to be trying to you give them an inch they'll take a mile type thing.
Right. Yeah, if I'm running a group and I'm like trying to put feelers out for officer positions, um and I have someone that's super eager to be an officer but doesn't otherwise behave like an officer, I'm going to be like, "No. It's not
Right.
this
Right.
isn't going to happen." I
Right.
prefer my officers to take the initiative without the entitlement.
Right. Right.
If they step up and start taking care of things themselves, then they'll get rewarded with the entitlement.
Right. 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 You give them like if they show the desire to do the work, then you give them the tools to make that work easier. You don't give them
Right.
the tools and then kind of expect them to naturally assume. If you were talking a bit about like you have an events officer
Yes.
for your group, and like how they were running events before they kind of became officially recognized as that officer. They were kind of investing their own time and effort to doing this um, already. They didn't need to be kind of prodded like, oh hey, why don't you run events, please prod. They were already running events. Just then, then there was the recognition, the kind of what I talked about, like the reward. You gave them attention, you gave them recognition, you gave them some authority to say, okay, this person is going to run the events. Anybody who else wants to run events should basically coordinate with them.
Yes. Exactly. And that comes with their own stress, because then they kind of they stepped up to the plate, but then they kind of have the stress of, oh well, this is my responsibility now, which
Right.
is kind of a double-edged sword in that sense. But it's
Right.
been working out relatively well.
Right, right.
Um, and on top of picking officers, the other thing is the other thing about it, I was uh, you want to listen to your members. If people are giving complaints, if people are trying to communicate that they want something in particular, you want to listen to them. You don't want to dismiss them because nobody wants to be dismissed by the authority figure of the group.
Mm.
But so it I completely forget where I was going with this when I wrote this, but you want to listen to your members, and your members should listen to you. It's a two-way street. That's where I was going with it, and that's the end of my thought. Okay, moving on.
Well, and I think
No, go ahead.
maybe to clarify a little bit on that too. Looking at the professional level, like like a lot of people like, oh, you should listen to your player base. Like I think there is a difference between like listening to what people say and observing what people do and how they act.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is true a bit on the more personal level as well. Like, sometimes people don't know exactly what they want. Like they might have this vague feeling of dissatisfaction that maybe something could be going better, but they really can't like put a name to it. And so sometimes on the professional level, sometimes you have to kind of like tease out information so people can like so you can understand what they want. But I think on the individual level, with a personal group too, like you really kind of need to make sure that you're kind of like uh, you know kind of hooked into other people and kind of like even if some people aren't saying something, kind of reading the mood, kind of.
Right, and that's where having the right officers in the right positions can be very useful
Right,
too, because not everybody's going to talk to the leader or
right,
to they might only talk to one specific person. That the, if that person is elevated in their confidence in the leadership, they can take what they're hearing and tell you what they're hearing and how they're interpreting it, and maybe help flesh out the voice of the group
right.
to explain it in a way that makes sense.
Right, right.
Yeah, like my Makote group, we have a our other officer is the I call him the welcoming committee. Um,
Mm,
he basically his job is just to interact with newer members of the group, offer them role play, make sure that they're comfortable and they feel kind of catered to as
mm,
they're making connections with everyone else in the group as well. They're like the lifeline to the new members.
mm,
And it's worked out really well because they'll talk to this officer, and if
mm.
they have a grievance or something, they'll vent to them, they'll talk to them, and when appropriate, they'll come to us and the other leadership roles and go, hey, I heard X, Y, and Z's having issues with this and this. I was wondering maybe we could do something to work through it,
Okay.
alleviate
Yeah.
it, or whatever. And we'll go, oh yeah, sure, we can do an event for that, or
Right.
oh yeah, this other person has an RPR that's kind of similar with that. Let's get those two together
Right.
and see if that helps their RP out.
Right.
Um, so it's but that officer was already doing that before we
Right.
made them an officer. Now once we made them an officer, that opened them up to our other like restricted channels that only admins can see on the server, and that made
Mm,
it easier for them to communicate with us while they're doing what they were already doing.
mm.
Um, and it's worked out really well. I'm honestly some days I'm a little shocked at how well this group operates.
Right. Right.
Because we see so much shit happening on a weekly basis with just like exterior drama bleeding into our community and whatnot. That I've
Right.
never seen a group. I've never been a part of a group that could handle this as well
Right.
as this group does.
Right. Right.
So we,
I think yeah, I think part of that probably from what even from what you told me, the culture, having a solid culture, kind of like what I was talking about, like establishing that culture and understanding how much influence you have over it. You know, if like everybody says, like I've seen so many people say, "Oh, we don't do drama," but or we don't tolerate drama. But like it's like, well, what happens when?
when drama does happen, yeah.
Right, right, right. You have to handle that, and like there's no kind of quick and easy rule for like, nope.
Yeah, Dejar brings up an important point. Procedures. Procedures are very
Mm,
important.
right,
Even
right,
if they're informal procedures, they still matter.
right, right, and understanding them, yeah. I mean, again, like a lot of times be too stuck in the mud. You don't want to be, like you don't want to get too hung up on the idea of, sure, um, everything, basically everything, you know, everything's spelled out to a perfect degree. But
Right, and the my next point was to establish, consistent expectations, which you touched on before. But in a player community, it's important for everyone to know what's expected of them. It's important for them to know what to expect of the group. Kind of
mm,
same thing you said before. When a guild isn't consistent, that's when a lot of butt hurt happens.
right, right. Again, like if somebody feels like, oh, this person did X and they got Y result, I did X, and then I feel put upon because people didn't treat me, people treated me worse, or they didn't treat me as well as they treated this other person.
Right, exactly. Sorry, give me a second. I'm getting a bottle of water. Um, yeah, and you already really touched on that one. I'm not sure if I have much more to add. I should have read this document before we.
We did write this up quite a little while ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Things inspired to basically make it so that it took a while for us to get to it.
So my next point, which I think you still touched on this one, was give members of your group freedom, and I actually have a horror story involving this.
Right.
I'm not sure if I should tell it now or later.
I see it for the end. Let's give people something to look forward to.
Basically, you just don't want people to feel confined in your group.
Right.
One of the big taboos. I'll tell the actual story about it in a little bit. But one of the big taboos that I've experienced is some groups will ostracize their members from their friends and
Right.
basically make them have to rely solely on the group for social interactions in the game.
Right. I remember you telling about some of your previous RP groups doing that, and that's a very cult like behavior, like like separating people from family and loved ones.
Oh, it met the 13 checkpoints of a
Right.
cult. Like it was bad. It was
Right.
really bad. Anyways, so I'll tell that story in a little bit.
Mm.
Um another one, I mean it kind of fits with expectations, but establish standards of behavior. Uh make it you want to make your guild a place where people know how they're expected to behave.
Mm.
A really good example of this is for members of your group to understand that they represent your group. If they're going around being toxic dicks, within the larger community, that's going to look bad on your group as a whole. If you're running around with your guild tag of feats, and your
Right.
character's name is Feet Fetish McGee.
Right. Right.
I'm sorry, I just saw a
Well,
screenshot of that earlier, and it's still on my mind.
right. People are gonna make certain assumptions about that group, even if it's kind of a joke, and be like, oh, that person. Right, right, and it's kind of the same thing. Like if you have a toxic asshole that goes around being a toxic asshole to everybody, people are just going to assume, oh, this is the type of group that either welcomes in toxic asshole, or at the very least, tolerates toxic assholes. Who else is going to be a toxic asshole in that group?
Right. A good example of this is I'm not gonna name names, but there's this guy on Matt Yes who's notorious for pulling hump mobs early, and hump mobs are like world bosses that spawn every couple of hours. And on Mattias, we have this tradition of forming trains to go after hump mobs. So there's a whole Discord server just dedicated to this, where the people on the server will go around through all the zones. They'll get the position of every hunt mob. They'll mark it on the Discord. And then once all hunt mobs are found, a train will be announced on server within all the link shells and in shout chats and everything. It's a big whole ordeal. And then they'll announce the first target. Once that target's set, they'll announce the next one. And it's just a train across all the zones.
Right.
There's this one. There's a couple of them now with cross world, world visiting. But there's one guy, particular on Mattias, that's notorious for just running up and just pulling the hump mobs before the train conductors, as we call them, are ready. And then that just causes everyone to go after the mob. And the issue is that train conductors will hold off on announcing time to kill, the kill time, so that people have time to get to the mob.
Right. Not everybody runs at the same speed, or lag spikes happen.
Some people load screens are longer. Yeah.
Right.
And this one guy is just known for just running up to the mob as soon as he sees them. There's a couple more now with world visiting, but yeah.
Right. And so like you have, and so basically you have the kind of this toxic behavior of someone who does this thing. Yeah.
And he has a guild tag, and his guild is his entire free company is banned from the Hunt network. Of link shells, because they don't want him getting privy information ahead of time through like his FC members. So his actions affected his entire free company in that sense.
Right.
And oh yeah, my last thing that you need to do for your community: have some fucking fun.
Right.
We're not getting paid to do this shit. Like, the point of the guild is to have organized fun, basically. If all we're doing is having drama, people getting upset and like not having fun, then the community needs to be reworked immediately.
Right.
And I have more horror stories about that. So I have some don'ts. Let me time code myself real fast. So the first don't do in a guild, it kind of goes with yours, with what you said earlier. Don't grant absolute power to any member. Don't be like, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can have control over everyone else. Like your word is law. Don't do that. It doesn't. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right.
And that goes to guild leaders too. Guild leaders need to have their own checks and balances within the leadership council. If the guild leader is the only one making the decisions, if they don't have anyone else to bounce things off of or to discuss things with, it's gonna end poorly.
Right.
And kind of the next one kind of goes into that. related to that is don't overreact to bad news. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like that's how a lot of the guilds that I've been a part of have fallen apart. Where say someone wants to leave the group or needs to take a break, or
Mm.
what's another one? There's a little bit of an argument. And it's like a nothing argument, but someone overreacts to it, and then all of a sudden they're a Nazi.
Right,
It,
right, right.
and
Extreme
then
viewpoints get thrown out, and
right, and then people get kicked out, and then people get banned, and then everything just falls apart because of a nothing argument. Uh,
right,
Overreactions are lethal to communities. Um, well, a famous issue that happens in every community: rumors. Don't trust them.
right, right. I heard that X did. It's like, go talk to X.
Right. There's a rule of verify and investigate discreetly. That's my personal rule.
Right,
If I'm hearing a rumor and it matters, if I hear a rumor that X is, European with Y, I'm gonna be like, I don't give a fuck.
right, right. All
but
right.
but if X called Y a Nazi,
Right.
I'm gonna go to X and go, did you call Y a Nazi? And they're gonna go, no. And I'm like, okay. Well, if I hear more about this, we're gonna have to talk to some.
Right, right.
I don't know why I'm choosing Nazis. That's a really weird thing to.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like I've seen a lot of kind of discussion stuff, kind of like devolve into that. Oh, you're just a Nazi. You're just a. Right? It's also Godwin's law. The longer an argument goes along, the likelihood that somebody gets compared to or called a Nazi, approaches one.
True. That'd be a fascinating calculation to come up with.
How long until somebody calls each other Nazi?
Yeah. Like how long does an argument take to deteriorate to that point?
Right, right.
Oh, that's a lot of variables. Anyways, a big don't. This is a part of that horror story I'm promising. Later is don't control what your members can and cannot do outside of your environment.
Right.
If you are running a guild and you're to the point of, oh well, I don't want you to RP with this other group because I don't like them, then you're stepping a boundary. You can warn somebody, oh, by the way, I've had bad experiences with that group. If you're gonna hang out with them, just be careful.
Right, right. Or don't bring them around,
Right.
because they've caused problems in the past or whatever.
As long as that's within the purview of your group. Oh, don't bring them to our guild house.
Right, right.
That's fine. But if you're saying you can't go to theirs to hang out with them, then you're stepping a
Right.
boundary by trying to control your members.
Right, right.
Like they're not children. I hopefully. I mean, even if they are children, they still have your members still have their own agency.
Right.
And you can't treat them like they're invalids or idiots or um unintelligent beings. Your members can make their own decisions.
Right.
And speaking of making bad decisions, I'm sorry, it took me a second to come up with that segue. Democracy is not always the best way to treat things.
Right.
If you're taking every decision and going, okay, let's vote on it, you're not going to get anything done.
Right, right. Because then there's going to be discussion and there's just I mean, it's basically kind of the joke about like endless place. Like nobody wants to kind of like go from endless meetings at work, at the workplace to endless meetings at for something they're supposed to be doing for fun.
Right, exactly. And as a leader, um, if you're throwing everything to voting, you're basically abstaining your own responsibility of taking care of your community.
Right.
That it's all honestly, in my experience, it's kind of cowardly to just be like, oh well, I don't know what to do, so we're gonna vote on it. No, it's make a decision, toss it around your leadership council or your advisors or whatever kind of structure you have, and then if you have an issue with taking responsibility with it, then you can kind of throw it to the leadership group as a whole as making that decision. But going, oh well, the whole group is going to decide, that's
Right.
kind of just passing the puck, to be honest, in my
Right.
in my experience. But on the other hand, you also don't want to be an oppressive administrator. On the other spectrum of things, you don't want to be making every single decision that affects the group as a whole without any input from anyone else, and
Right.
going,
It's a balance, obviously, where you want to, um, you need to be able to lead, but you don't want to be an autocrat. You don't want to be a dictator.
yes, exactly. I'm not gonna say what I. Sorry, I'm having a lot of naughty thoughts today.
Wow.
I know, it's horrible.
Behave.
Hey, just follow my next step and don't insult people. It doesn't usually do anything constructive. You filthy Nazi.
Well,
It didn't take long,
I'm
did
a
it?
very clean Nazi, thank you. I take a bath once a month, whether I need it or not.
Oh my. Well then, I want to make that a T-shirt. I'm a very clean Nazi, but I don't think it would go over very well.
I don't think you'd get it. I don't think that'd be a service of most of those places that print T-shirts.
Oh, okay. Anyways, no, you just get them wherever the KKK gets theirs. It's fine.
China.
Okay, we derailed.
A little bit. I think, but going back to like one of your previous things, I think like talking about like like knowing the scope of like what you should control and what you shouldn't, I think is
Right.
important. I think like kind of what you said before, like people should understand that they're a representative of your group, if especially if they're carrying around a guild tag, for good or for ill. And
Right.
so you want people to kind of like you want to make sure that their behavior is appropriate for someone wearing your guild tag. But like I think a good example is like like when it comes to alts, I've seen like a lot of groups like PvE groups, even PV and even RP groups that like, oh, you can't have alts in other groups.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, I think that kind of like tends to go too far over the line, because like, well, if I want to go play an alt, that should be my prerogative. Again, like like I want to have fun, so like like an RP group shouldn't try to control what alts do, and like an like a PvE group, if you have if you have troubles because people are going to alts instead of attending raid nights, you have troubles because you have troubles of people not wanting to show up. You don't have a trouble of people playing alts.
Right, exactly. And that's actually been a common issue I've seen in RP groups as well.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, well, we want you to RP with our group, but you keep going over to alts to hang out with other people. Well, maybe that's because that person isn't fitting in with your group and it's just not working out. I mean, that happens sometimes. Or maybe they're just enjoying an alt for a little bit.
Right. And like sometimes people just need a little time off, or maybe they're just tired, or like let people kind of like kind of what you said, kind of trust people. Let them have fun. Like you're doing this for fun. Like let them. Maybe they're feeling burnt out. Like you let them get a chance to basically not feel burnt out.
Right, exactly.
And if enough people are doing that, maybe you need to kind of re-examine what you're doing, that makes people want, prefer to go play an alt instead of play with your group.
Right. Yeah, like speaking about alt, like altitis is usually a symptom of a different issue.
Mm.
Like I mean, it can be one of any issues, but like usually altitis is just a symptom, and you have to
Mm.
figure out what the root of that, what the root issue is about
Right.
it.
Or let people kind of kind of take care of that. Kind of understand that like, hey, sometimes people just want a day off.
Right,
If people don't want to to raid or RP or do whatever, let them have their fun. But
right,
yeah, like you said at the end of your the day, if they're having more fun in an alt than with your group, then either accept that or kind of try to figure out what what you can do with the group to kind of make it more appealing for them to do.